not one made of bars or walls, but one far more binding. A prison constructed entirely of your own acceptance of the evidence of your senses. You see, most of humanity lives their entire life imprisoned in what we call the three-dimensional world. They wake each morning, open their eyes, and immediately surrender their power to what they see, what they hear, what they touch. They believe that this world of Caesar, this world of effects, is the cause of their experience, and in that belief they become its prisoner. But I tell you tonight, and I tell you with complete conviction, you are not meant to live as a reactor to the three-dimensional world. You were born to be its creator. The moment you understand this, truly understand it, the prison walls dissolve and you step into the freedom that has always been yours. Let me explain what I mean by this trap. For it is subtle, and it has ensnared nearly everyone who walks this earth. You have a desire, perhaps it's for wealth, for health, for love, for recognition. And in a moment of inspiration, you turn within. You use your imagination. You feel it real. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And in that glorious moment, you touch something true. You touch power. You touch creation itself. But then, and this is where the trap springs, you open your eyes and return to the world of Caesar. You look at your bank account, and it shows lack. You look at your body, and it shows illness. You look at your relationships, and they reflect loneliness. And what do? You react. You say to yourself, well, I tried that imagination thing, but look, nothing has changed. The facts are still the facts. And in that moment of reaction, in that moment of bowing to the evidence of your senses, you have re-imprisoned yourself. You have made the three-dimensional world your God. Now, I must make something clear to you, for this is where most people stumble and fall. There is always a gap, what I call an interval, between your assumption in imagination and its manifestation in the three-dimensional world. Always. This is not a flaw in the law. This is not evidence that imagination doesn't work. This interval exists for a very specific reason. Think of it this way: when you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up the next day to see if it's growing. You know there is a period of gestation, a time during which the invisible work is being done beneath the surface. You water it, you tend it, and you wait with confidence, knowing that in due time the sprout will appear. Your imagination works the same way. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you have planted a seed in the invisible realm of consciousness. That seed is now growing, developing, preparing to break through into the visible world. But it needs time, and more importantly, it needs your fidelity. The three-dimensional world you see at this moment is nothing more than the fruit of seeds you planted weeks, months, perhaps even years ago through your habitual thinking and feeling. It is yesterday's crop. It is the past, frozen in time, appearing before you as solid reality. But it is not your future. It is not what you are creating now. It is only what you have already created. Here is the great deception. Your senses tell you that what you see, hear, and touch is reality. And because your senses are so convincing, so immediate, so persistent in their testimony, you believe them. Your eyes show you poverty, and you believe you are poor. Your body feels pain, and you believe you are sick. Your circumstances show you alone, and you believe you are unloved. But I tell you, your senses are liars. Not in the sense that they don't accurately report what is there, they do. But they lie in their claim to be the final authority on what is real and what is possible. They lie when they suggest that the visible world is the cause rather than the effect. Scripture tells us, we walk by faith, not by sight. Do you know what that means? It means we must learn to trust the invisible reality of our imagination more than the visible reality of our senses. We must learn to give greater weight to what we assume in consciousness than to what appears in the world of effects. This is the hardest thing for the human being to do, because the three-dimensional world is loud. It is insistent. It demands your attention and your agreement. And the moment you give it that agreement, the moment you say, yes, this is reality, this is the truth of my situation, you have imprisoned yourself once again. Now let me tell you something that will help you understand why this trap is so powerful and how you can escape it. Within you are two minds, though you experience yourself as one being. I call them the outer mind and the inner mind. But you might also think of them as the mind of the senses and the mind of imagination. The outer mind, the mind of the senses, lives entirely in the three-dimensional world. It observes, it analyzes, it judges based on what it perceives. It is logical, practical, concerned with survival. It wants proof before it will believe. It scans the visible world constantly, looking for confirmation that things are going well or going poorly. This mind is not your enemy, but it is not your master either. It is a servant that has forgotten its place and has set itself up as king. The inner mind, the mind of imagination, is where your true power resides. This is the mind that creates. This is the consciousness that preceded the world and brought it into being. In the beginning was the Word, Scripture tells us. The Word is your imagination, your I am, your consciousness itself. When these two minds are in conflict, when the outer mind contradicts what the inner mind has assumed, you experience what feels like a crisis. The outer mind says, look at the facts. You don't have the money. The inner mind says, I am wealthy. The outer mind says, look at your body. You are sick. The inner mind says, I am healthy. And you must choose which mind you will serve, which mind you will give your loyalty to. Most people, without even realizing they're doing it, choose the outer mind. They choose the evidence of the senses. They choose the testimony of the three-dimensional world. And in that choice, they remain imprisoned, creating and recreating the same reality they're trying to escape. Let me tell you plainly what the three-dimensional world is. For when you understand its true nature, its power over you will dissolve. The three-dimensional world is shadow. It is echo. It is reflection. Think of it as a mirror. When you stand before a mirror, you see your reflection. If you don't like what you see, would you try to change the reflection directly? Would you reach toward the mirror and try to rearrange the image? Of course not. That would be madness. You know instinctively that to change the reflection, you must change what is being reflected. You must change yourself, and the mirror has no choice but to show the new image. The three-dimensional world is exactly the same. It is a perfect mirror of your consciousness, of your habitual dwelling place in imagination. If you don't like what you see in the world, you cannot change it by manipulating the world. You can only change it by changing your consciousness, by changing what you are assuming to be true about yourself. When you argue with the three-dimensional world, when you try to fix it, manipulate it, force it to be different, you are arguing with a shadow. You are trying to manipulate a reflection, and shadows and reflections have no power to resist, but they also have no power to change until you change. Here is where I must be very direct with you, for this is where most people lose their way. When the three-dimensional world shows you something you don't like, you are tempted to negotiate with it. You are tempted to make deals, to compromise, to adjust your vision to match what you see. You say things like, well, maybe I can't have the whole thing, but perhaps I can have part of it. Or maybe my desire was too big, too unrealistic. Let me adjust it to something more reasonable. Or maybe this is a sign that I should give up and accept my circumstances. Every one of these thoughts is a negotiation with the three-dimensional world. And I tell you now, the moment you negotiate with the 3D, you have given it authority over your imagination. You have made the effect more real than the cause. You have bowed down to Caesar and forgotten that you are the operant power. Do not negotiate with the three-dimensional world. Let me say that again because it is crucial. Do not negotiate with the three-dimensional world. When circumstances press in, when the facts scream at you, when the evidence of your senses overwhelms you, you must stand firm in your assumption. You must remain loyal to the invisible state you have claimed in imagination. This is not stubbornness. This is not denial of reality. This is understanding which reality is cause and which is effect. This is knowing that consciousness is the only reality, and all else is its shadow. Now, how do you practically do this? How do you stop reacting to the three-dimensional world when it appears so real, so solid, so unchangeable? First, you must catch yourself in the act of reacting. You must become aware of the moment when you see something unwanted and feel yourself beginning to accept it as truth, beginning to adjust your inner state to match the outer facts. The moment you notice this happening, and you will notice it more and more as you become conscious of it, you pause. You do not move forward in reaction. You do not let the outer dictate to the inner. Instead, you ask yourself, is this evidence of who I was or who I now am? That single question will cut through the illusion. It will remind you that what you see in the three-dimensional world is always old news. It is the harvest of seeds you planted in the past through your previous assumptions. It has nothing to do with who you have become in imagination now. If you have assumed wealth in your imagination, then you are wealthy in consciousness, regardless of what your bank account currently shows. The bank account is showing you who you were. Your imagination is showing you who you are. And between these two, you must choose which one you will give reality to. Let me give you a practical tool that has proven invaluable to those who practice it faithfully. Revision. When something happens in your three-dimensional world that contradicts your assumption, when you receive bad news, when circumstances appear to move in the wrong direction, when people act in ways that deny your fulfilled desire, do not accept it. Instead, immediately revise it in your imagination. If you receive a rejection letter, sit quietly, close your eyes, and imagine receiving an acceptance letter. Feel it in your hands. Read the words of approval and enthusiasm. Make it vivid and real in your imagination. If someone speaks to you harshly, denying your worth, immediately replay the scene in your imagination, with them speaking to you with respect and kindness. Hear their voice saying what you would have heard had the world been as you desire. This is not pretending. This is not make-believe. This is exercising your power as the creator of your reality. You are refusing to let the three-dimensional world write your story. You are taking the pen back and writing the story yourself. Every time you revise, you are saying to the universe, to the three-dimensional world, no, I do not accept this version. This is not consistent with who I am in my imagination, and therefore it is not my reality. And when you persist in this, when you refuse to negotiate, when you consistently choose your imaginal state over the evidence of your senses, the three-dimensional world has no choice but to conform. I want you to understand something fundamental. You are not a victim of the three-dimensional world. You are its cause. Consciousness is the only reality. I have said this countless times, but I will say it again because it is the foundation of everything. Consciousness is the only reality, and all else is its manifestation. You are consciousness. You are the I am. You are not the body that walks through this three-dimensional world. You are not the personality with its history and its limitations. You are the eternal awareness, the imaging power, the very presence of God individualized. When you know this, not as a concept, but as a living truth, you cannot be imprisoned by anything external. How can that which creates the world be imprisoned by its own creation? The three-dimensional world has no power except the power you give it through your belief, through your reaction, through your acceptance of its testimony as final. The moment you withdraw that power, the moment you refuse to bow to its authority, it loses its grip on you. It becomes what it has always been, clay in the hands of consciousness, waiting to be molded into whatever form consciousness assumes. Now let me tell you the secret of escaping this prison permanently. You must live from the end. What does this mean? It means you must assume the consciousness of your wish already fulfilled, and live in that assumption as though it were already a fact in the three-dimensional world, even when all evidence denies it. If you desire wealth, you do not imagine yourself becoming wealthy. You imagine from the state of being wealthy. You assume the feeling of wealth now. You think as the wealthy man thinks. You speak as the wealthy man speaks. You carry yourself as the wealthy man carries himself. You do this not as an act, not as a performance, but as an assumption of truth. You are not pretending to be wealthy while secretly knowing you are poor. You are claiming wealth in consciousness, and you are remaining loyal to that claim regardless of what the three-dimensional mirror currently reflects. This is what I mean by living from the end. You skip over all the means, all the process, all the how, and you go straight to the end, to the fulfillment of your desire. You assume it is already done, and you live in that assumption. The three-dimensional world will test you. It will show you evidence that contradicts your assumption. It will present you with circumstances that seem to make your desire impossible. This is not the universe punishing you or denying you. This is simply the old reflection still playing out while the new one is being formed. Your job is to remain faithful to the new assumption, to continue living from the end, to refuse to negotiate with the old reality. And in time, in God's time, which is always perfect, the three-dimensional world will rearrange itself to match your assumption. It must. It has no choice. Because consciousness is cause and the world is effect. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they finally understand that they are not trapped in the three-dimensional world at all, that the prison was always an illusion, maintained only by their belief in it. When you reach that moment, and you will if you persist, you will laugh at how seriously you once took the evidence of your senses. You will marvel at how you allowed shadows to frighten you, how you let reflections convince you of their permanence. You will realize that you were never imprisoned. You simply believed you were. And that belief created the experience of imprisonment. The truth is, you have always been free. You have always been the operant power. You have always been the creator standing behind the mirror, capable of changing the reflection at will. The three-dimensional world has never had power over you. You gave it power through your acceptance of its verdict as final. And the moment you withdraw that acceptance, the moment you reclaim your authority as consciousness itself, the prison walls dissolve. Let me give you a practice to take with you from tonight's lecture. Tomorrow morning when you wake, before you open your eyes, before you allow the three-dimensional world to flood in with its facts and circumstances, take a moment to remember who you are. Say to yourself, I am the operant power, I am consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. The world I see is my creation, and I can change it by changing my assumptions. Then throughout the day, whenever you are tempted to react to something in the three-dimensional world, whenever you feel yourself beginning to negotiate with circumstances, remember this: you are not in the world. The world is in you. You contain it all. You are not a small being trying to manipulate a large, indifferent universe. You are consciousness itself, and the universe is your own wonderful human imagination pushed out. When you receive news that contradicts your assumption, say quietly to yourself, this is who I was, not who I am. I do not negotiate with yesterday. I remain in my chosen state. When your senses show you lack, remember that they are showing you the past. Turn within and feel abundance now. Do not wait for the three-dimensional proof. Be abundant in consciousness, and let the proof follow. When people act in ways that deny your fulfilled desire, do not argue with them. Do not try to convince them. Simply revise the interaction in your imagination. See them and hear them responding to you as they would respond to the person you have become in imagination. This is not difficult. It requires no special talent or ability. It requires only persistence, only loyalty to your imaginal state, only refusal to bow to the tyranny of facts. I must warn you, you will be tested, not by some external force, not by a punishing God, but by the simple mechanics of creation. The three-dimensional world will continue to reflect your old assumptions for a time after you have changed them. This is the interval I spoke of earlier, the gap between planting and harvest. During this interval, you will be tempted to doubt. You will be tempted to think that your new assumption isn't working, that imagination isn't powerful enough, that perhaps you should return to trying to manipulate the outer world. This is the test. This is where most people fail. They remain in their new state for a day, perhaps a week, perhaps even a month. But when the three-dimensional world doesn't immediately reflect the change, they fold. They return to the old state. They begin to negotiate. And in doing so, they plant the old seed again. They recreate the very reality they were trying to escape. Do not make this mistake. Persist. Remain faithful. Stay loyal to your assumption regardless of what you see, regardless of how long it takes, regardless of how loudly the three-dimensional world protests. I promise you, on the authority of my own experience and the experience of countless others who have proven this law, if you persist, if you refuse to negotiate, if you remain in the state of the wish fulfilled, the three-dimensional world will conform. It must conform. Because it has no choice, because it is not the cause, you are. Tonight I have told you that you are trapped in 3D, but the moment you truly hear this message, the moment you truly understand it, you are no longer trapped, because the trap exists only in your belief. The three-dimensional world is not your prison. Your acceptance of it as final authority is your prison, and you hold the key. You have always held the key. That key is your imagination, your consciousness, your I am. Use it. Claim your desire in imagination. Feel it as real now, not in some distant future. Assume the state of the wish fulfilled. And then, and this is crucial, remain in that state, no matter what the three-dimensional world shows you. Do not negotiate with appearances. Do not make deals with circumstances. Do not adjust your vision to match the mirror. Instead, hold your vision firm and watch as the mirror adjusts to match you. You are not meant to be a prisoner of the world. You are meant to be its creator, its master, its operant power. And the moment you step into that truth, the moment you refuse to give the three-dimensional world authority over your consciousness, you are free. Free to create, free to imagine, free to become anything you desire to be. The prison has no walls. It never did. Walk out. You are free.